Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And we're at episode 172.
Have you ever thought what it's like to be wanderers in the fourth dimension?
Nobody in the universe can do what we're doing.
I've reversed the polarity of the neutron flow, so the TARDIS should be free of the force field now.
There's no point in being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes.
The trouble with time travel is, one never seems to find the time.
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc.
I am the Doctor!
Great men are forged in fire. It is the privilege of lesser men to light the flame.
I'm the Doctor. This is Rose Tyler. She's my +1. Is that all right?
That would be me.
Hello. Surprise.
Boom.
Etc.
I'm the Doctor. Do everything I tell you, don't ask stupid questions, and don't wander off.
How can you kidneys? I don't like the colour.
Howdy, howdy do, Who fans. Hope you've all had a cracking week and you've managed to do something Doctor Who related.
Yeah.
Indeedy. It's been a fairly quiet week for us. Well, for me anyway.
I was just thinking, listening to that intro, I almost wanted to put a little Jodie, brilliant, in after Capaldi then.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I'm not going to do accents. We get told off, don't we?
Somebody did tweet, and said, are you going to put Jodie in your intro now then?
Oh, yeah, she will be in there, I'm sure, at some point. But
I did say possibly, but it feels a bit too early.
Too soon?
Too soon, yeah. I think once her sort of first proper episode has gone out, might grab a different clip if she's got any, which I'm sure she will have, any decent one-liners.
Yeah. I'm sure she will have.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Until then, we'll just go, brilliant, ourselves and in the music. Yeah.
So, yes, 172 is here. Got a couple of bits of news to go through. A couple of bits of merch. And then we're on to that cheeky chappy. Old 10.
Yes, Tennant.
Score reunion.
K9.
K9. So you might have this might be familiar to some of you, the school reunion thing, because Adam and I, although we haven't reviewed this story before, we have done an audio commentary on it. Yeah,
we always think we've reviewed it, don't we? Because we did that commentary. Yeah, I was the same when we put it on the list. I was like, we've done that. You're like, no, we haven't.
Yeah, so when I looked through our extensive spreadsheet of every Doctor Who episode and the ones that we've done and haven't done and all that, I looked at it and thought, that's showing as not reviewed. I'm sure we've done it. And I thought, of course, that was the commentary.
Yes.
So, anyways, what have you been up to, mate? You all good?
Yes, I'm a happy chap. I'm a happy chap because listeners to last week's podcast will know I've been waiting for a war machine to come crashing through my front door. And I was getting worried because it was taking its time. But then they are quite slow, to be fair. And he has arrived. So I'm talking about Eagle Moss. They do this figurine magazine, and every now and again they do a special edition of that magazine where the figure is about 5 times the size of what they normally put out. And so this one is of the War Machine. So a special edition of the War Machine. And mate, I don't know if you saw the picture. It's absolutely brilliant. And I keep sort of carrying it round. It's really weird. It's like, when you get a bit of merch you really like and you just keep moving. So I've put it on top of the piano, and then I thought I better put him in my collection. So he's gone on the shelf of all my other clutter. And then I've brought him back down and I've put him next to the television. It's almost like I've got a new pet that I'm just taking around the house with me, because it's such a great figure and it's really weighty as well. It's a real good size and heavy figure. So yeah, I'm a happy chap because I was getting a bit worried that he'd been lost in the post or whatever, because a few things. And also the other things I thought got lost turned up as well, which was the Big Finish CDs.
Yeah.
And I was saying, this is weird because they've arrived together. So the CD that was dispatched on the 2nd of Jan, apparently, and then the CD that was dispatched 3 days ago arrived together. And I was thinking, right, so that's the one I thought was lost. And so I guess Big Finish, perhaps when they say dispatched, what they mean is the download has been released, but we haven't actually dispatched it. I think that's looking at the Facebook forum of Big Finish. That's what I'm guessing, because a lot of people have said the same about the first Doctor adventure set, because they're saying, oh, it's showing as being dispatched because they released it early, didn't they? They released it after the Twice Upon a Time. So I think that's where the confusion lies. They say dispatch. What they mean is we've released the download, but the CD will follow when
see. Yes.
So there we go. So yes, I'm a happy chap. Things that I thought were lost are here, and they're all nice and shiny and brilliant.
That's
and on
awesome.
The shelf.
Yeah,
and good. The only other thing I've been doing is reading this month's Doctor Who mag.
Oh yeah, with Jodie on the front.
Jodie on the front. Have you picked it up yet?
No.
Okay, well, this is the reason I mention it, because last couple of issues Doctor Who mag, I think we both said this, have been a bit weak. We've both sort of flicked through and not been much in there, has there? They've been okay, but they not been anything great. This issue is really good, I have to say. First of all, beautiful cover. That's tick. It's got a nice little interview with Jodie in the magazine itself.
Cool.
And it's got some really cool little features in it this month, which I've actually, because normally, I'll flick through and if nothing grabs me, it just gets thrown on the side. But this week I've actually been reading bits in it, which is always a good sign. There's a great little bit in it about the Mr. Men books and stuff, which is really cool. So I recommend, if you can find it, because once again I've seen a few people tweeting that they haven't been able to find this month, which is worrying. But yeah, if you can see it in the shop, I recommend getting this month. It's a really good little issue.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen a few tweets. I mean, it's still available round the corner at my local Sainsbury's. They've still got 4 or 5 copies there. So if you recommend this month, mate, I'll pick that up. But yeah, I've seen a couple of people have tweeted in to say that they couldn't find it, and somebody had said it was the first time they've been able to get one at their local Tesco, because whenever they go in there, it's always gone or it's not been delivered. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? We've noticed this a lot since probably August last year, I would say.
It's the McCoy issue, wasn't it? Something happened.
Something definitely happened with their distribution or their, I don't know, but it just seemed to be a lot of people commenting on the fact that they either can't find it or there's not been enough issues delivered, so that it's sold out before they got there. So I guess if you're really into it, it would be what you do, and that is to subscribe, I suppose. But
yeah, I must admit, although I know the only downside with subscribing is that it can arrive a bit battered. But to be fair, I think, and I haven't checked this for a while because it just goes out every 6 months or whatever they take the payment. But I seem to remember when I subscribed, I got a really good deal in terms of it worked out, that you get so many issues for a certain price, and it worked out very good. Because I think it's $5.99 now. Is it $5.99, $4.99? Because I subscribe, I don't even look at the price on the front, so I don't know how much it actually is an issue. I think it's $5.99. So it's worth subscribing to save money, as long as you don't mind it having a bit of a dent in the bottom of of the spine every now and again and stuff. But I mean, the interview with Jodie is really cool. It's not exactly an in-depth interview, of course. It's just literally a little snapshot interview, just talking with her. But it's just, I don't know, it's something very exciting, isn't there, about having a new Doctor on the front cover and just getting to hear their initial thoughts on what they think they're going to do with the role and all that sort of stuff. And there's nothing sort of revelationary in the interview, but it's just a nice little thing. So yeah, no, I recommend getting this month. So I enjoyed reading through this one. Yeah. But I haven't been out to much else, mate. I'm afraid. No.
They are doing a subscription offer again on Doctor Who magazine.
Oh yeah.
So you can get 6 issues for £19.50.
No, that's not bad, is it?
Or you can get 13 issues for £54. So if I think they are, how much are they? They're roughly a £5, aren't they?
I think they're $5.99. Yeah.
So normally it would cost you £29 for 6, but they're doing 6 for £20. So you get 2 issues free, effectively.
Yeah, which is not bad, is it?
That's okay. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I haven't been up to too much, mate. I've been carrying on with the watch through of the McCoy set. Do you know what? I had a bit of a fail on Thursday. So when we recorded last Wednesday, and I mentioned the McCoy collector's set. We will stop talking about it one week, I'm sure.
Because I'm still just salivating at the mouth. Yeah, go on.
And I said I will put some pictures on, definitely. So on the Thursday afterwards, I got the old phone out, did a bit of Instagramming. And I realised that nothing was working. So I did these cool little I don't know how long they are, like 20-second clips of me sort of opening the book and flicking through. I was like, yeah, cool. And for some reason, it just wouldn't go through on the other end. So luckily, on Instagram, you can do this thing where when you take a photo or a video clip, you can save it to your camera roll, I think it is. So I've got them. So I'll have another go later today or tomorrow. But yes, I also picked up. So after last week's review, I took your advice and picked up the story Omega from Big Finish.
Oh yeah.
Haven't listened to it yet because somebody did tweet me and say you need to watch Arc of Infinity because, of course, the Omega is a continuation after that story.
Yeah.
So I stuck Arc of Infinity on, which is an interesting Davison story, that one.
Yeah. Is that the Amsterdam one or is that the other one?
No.
Always get confused.
Oh, yes, it is. No, it is. Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
But like we mentioned last week, I always thought that the Omega costume in the Three Doctors is a lot better than the one in Arc, and it kind of reconfirmed that to me.
I just don't like the bit at the end where the costume melts and there's all this like custard coming out of the suit and all that. And I'm like, oh dear. It's interesting because they're very different designs and there's no similarity at all, is there? They haven't sort of thought, well, let's tweak the costume. They've just given him a new costume. I like both, but I think I'll always prefer the Three Doctors one. Don't know, just a bit more something about it. But I like both, yeah.
Yeah. It's not too bad, but I definitely prefer the Three Doctors. I don't know, it just has something a bit more iconic looking about it.
Yeah.
Well, this one's not bad. It's an interesting story, that one. It's a pretty good Tegan story as well.
I did, you know.
That one.
That's why I'm smiling, because I'm just remembering that she's been dumped in the story at the end of the story before. It must be Time Flight, I'm guessing. And then this one, you're kind of thinking she's in it, but she's not with the Doctor yet. Because I kept thinking, how does she get back on board the TARDIS? Like, when does that happen? Because it takes ages for them to meet up, if I remember right. But yeah, I haven't watched that one for a while.
Yes, we haven't reviewed it, so I'm not going to say too much.
Yes, good point. Yeah.
Also did a quick sort of flash competition on Sunday, which is good fun.
Oh yeah,
it's really good. So congrats to Oliver, Twitter name DW Fan Tweets, bagged himself a copy of the Three Doctors special edition, which is good. That was good fun. And also
congrats, Ollie.
Yeah, did a bit of convention planning as well for the year. And there's one thing coming up, mate, which I'm absolutely gutted about.
Oh, what's that?
Because I've been looking at the usuals, the dates for London Film Comic Con, and also looking at MCon this year and a couple of other smaller ones. But have you ever heard of these events that they do at the National Space Centre?
Rings a bell, actually. Yeah.
So every year,
never been to one, but
So the last few years, I think, the last 3 or 4 years, they've done these kind of weekend shows where it's normally called something like science fiction, the science of science fiction, or stuff like that. And they've typically had a couple of people from Who, turn up and do a couple of things. But this year, they've got this really cool weekend on called Science of the Time Lords.
Oh.
And it looks really good. So they've got activities throughout the day. They've got lots of stuff going on, but it's the guests that are really cool. So on the Saturday, this is not too bad. So you've got Dan Starkey, Gemma Redgrave, and Niamh McIntosh.
Oh, yeah.
So those three on the Saturday. But, mate, the Sunday is the belter. So
Colin.
On the Sunday, we've got Colin Baker.
Yeah.
McCoy.
Colin and McCoy, okay.
Davison.
And
McGann.
No, you're joking.
I'm not joking, mate.
Wow, I'm genuinely shocked. I hadn't seen this, so that is impressive.
It looks awesome, and they've also got Artists Alley as well. So at some conventions you have those big sort of areas where they've got all the artists who are like doing illustrations and selling stuff.
Yeah.
So they got Stuart Manning there. He did the really cool.
Oh, he's good.
Into the Dalek and some of those other alternate covers and stuff. Chris Achilleos.
Yeah,
that name could ring a bell.
Classic, yeah.
Yeah. Chris Thompson. He's one of the guys that if you've seen any of the Big Finish covers that have got any kind of 3D models on the front. He's the guy that does them. So if you'll recognise the stained glass TARDIS from the Colin Baker story.
Yeah.
So he did that. So that event sounds awesome.
What's it called again?
But we can't go.
Oh.
Because it's on the Sunday where all the cool peeps are is the 28th, and we're in London for the...
we're at the BFI.
We're at the BFI for the Day of the Doctor showing.
Oh.
That's what I mean. When I saw this, I was like, okay, I've heard this before, and I know that Davison did it last year, but I think it was only Davison and McCoy that were there last year, and I think possibly Nicola Bryant was there and Sophie Aldred. But this looks like I can't believe like all four of those guys are going to be there, and it's not even a mainstream convention, that's run by Showmasters or any of those guys. So, yeah, I will be completely honest with you. I'm in two minds about ditching the BFI thing.
Oh no!
And because how often do we say that? I mean, for me, I still need to meet Davison. I've still not had a chance to meet him. And McGann. I know we've met him a couple of times, but how many times do we say it would be really cool to get those guys together? And
yeah, I assume they're going to do a joint photo shoot as well. Surely that would be amazing to be in a photo with all of them doctors. Yeah. Where is it though?
It's a bit of a train. It's not too far. It's in Leicester.
Leicester.
So it's about an hour and a half, I suppose, on the train. It's not too bad.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. I think I've seen this floating around on Facebook, and I hadn't really taken much notice of it. But that completely passed me by that they've got all those doctors. That's pretty cool. Yeah, very tempting.
It's really tempting, isn't it?
Very tempting. Yes. Yeah.
Dear.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, yeah, and like you said, you haven't met Davison, so.
They got a really cool exhibition there as well, apparently. Lots and lots of classic Who collectibles on show.
I shall have to have a look at the website. I might be tempted as well.
Yeah.
I can hear Morgan, our good friend Morgan, who's meeting us at the BFI, shouting at us, going, "No!
Yeah, no.
Oh, no."
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, the BFI show, and it will be cool because it's really great to chill out with other Who fans and watch Who on the big screen. It's very cool, but this is very, very tempting.
As is MCon. A lot of people have been talking about MCon last week because Pearl's been added, and who else has been added? Somebody else cool. There's some David Bradley, I think, is there, and a lot of people say about MCon, which is in Nottingham.
Yeah, well, MCon do a few all over the place. There's one, so Davison's at one of them, and Billy Piper is at the...
Billy's just been added, hasn't she, to Nottingham?
The Barton one. She's been added too. Is she at Nottingham as well?
I think she is. Yeah, I'm sure she is. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's the MCons. I've never been to an MCon one before.
No.
But it does look very good. So I've been looking into those as well. So that's definitely on the radar.
Yeah, I was going to say another temptation. Yeah. So it's good, but I like that. I like the fact there's some good conventions coming up, and it's good to see Davison doing a few as well. Especially, because I'd like to meet him again. I do really like Davison's Doctor.
Yeah,
especially having read his book as well. I'd have to make sure I didn't wear my Tom Baker scarf this time.
God,
No wonder his face dropped after reading what he says. But yeah, no, cool. Well, I'll definitely keep them on the radar. Why do these things have to be on the same day? So annoying.
I know, mate. I know. Anyways,
the perils of being a Who fan, eh?
Do you know what? That's exactly what I just thought.
Yeah.
But shall we land the TARDIS and do some news?
Oh, yes, we should.
So first up, we're doing that really annoying thing where we start off the news segment with some sad news. So David Fisher, name might ring a bell to some of you, has sadly passed away this year at the age of 88. He was involved in Tom's era back in the day, in the late 70s, I would say. And he wrote 3 or 4 stories for Tom's era. He was sort of the main contributor really to the Key to Time series. You know, that kind of mini kind of
one of my least favourite eras, actually.
Yeah,
Baker's, but yeah, there's a couple of little bits. He was mostly involved in Stones of Blood, which, if anything, is one of the better ones in that era. I think.
Yeah.
That season, I should say. I hate that word.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to review that, but
no.
But yeah, so Stones of Blood then went on to do the Androids of Tara.
Yeah.
And then he went on to do The Creature from the Pit, 79. And then one thing that is quite interesting, which you and I sort of picked up on earlier, was he kicked off the script for City of Death, but was unable to finish it for personal reasons. So he had to hand over that responsibility to Douglas Adams. But it would have been interesting to see how it went if he'd have stayed on, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then
The Leisure Hive.
Yeah, that was his last story, The Leisure Hive, which was yes.
Have we reviewed Leisure Hive?
No, not yet.
Right. Again, I'll keep a bit zip then, but yeah.
Yes. But it did. He did write for quite a few things. This is sort of early Hammer horror stuff he was involved in, and some other things around sort of the 70s stuff like Dixon and Doc Green and Crown Court. That sort of thing, Crime of Passion.
Oh, yeah.
So, those sort of things around that time period he was fairly heavily involved in. But sadly left us on the 10th of January, aged 88.
88. Yeah, sad news. Okay, in other news, it's been a nice little piece in Radio Times this week about Jodie Whittaker, talking about when she filmed her regeneration scene. And apparently she did it almost immediately after being announced, because she was worried that if they did it before, and it was spotted going into the Cardiff studios, that people might put two and two together and stuff. And so literally it sounds like they announced her and then got her into the studios on the set, go, because she sort of talks about how she didn't sort of prep much for it. She didn't sort of go through the whole story. She literally just sort of went with what she had on her page, which wasn't a lot. So she said she didn't prep for it, she just kind of went with her gut instincts. And she talks about the first time that she actually steps on to the TARDIS set and realizing that everybody around her had been doing this for ages. And she was like, the new girl, it was her first day. So she says, I'd never stepped on that set. Almost everybody else who was shooting that scene had been working there for months and months, but I was there for a matter of hours. For me, everything, it felt brand new. So I think it's more to be trusting about my instincts. Sounds like she got on very well with Rachel Talalay, the director. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so just interesting to think that, announcement straight in, done, because I was wondering when they'd actually got that done and recorded and managed to keep it secret and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
It's interesting. You'd have thought that she would have, based on how they'd filmed regenerations over the last few years, you'd have thought that she would have arrived on set as Capaldi was leaving. So he'd have done his bit and then she was on. And because I remember the watching the behind the scenes stuff for when Tennant left, and he was saying that it felt very, very odd to see someone else wearing his costume.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a really emotional behind the scenes. I think they did it in a way where it was meant to be David Tennant himself kind of filming behind the scenes. It was like his video diaries, if you like. And he said it was so weird. And I remember they did that with him as well. So when Eccleston left, he sort of wandered off and into the sunset, and then they called Tennant on and he did his bit. So it's very interesting that she did all that stuff, immediately after the announcement.
I'm asking myself if she was there at the same time as Capaldi filming his regeneration bit or not, because I'm reading between the lines. I think it sounds like they filmed them separately.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think. I might be wrong. I'd love to know actually if somebody out there wants to correct me or knows. But reading between the lines, it sounds like she came in and filmed her regeneration separately from Capaldi. So, like you said, with Tennant, I remember seeing pictures of David Tennant and Matt Smith together, both wearing the blue suit on the TARDIS set. Remember those pictures of them goofing around? And Matt looks so different in those early pictures as well. I don't know, he just looks so young. And I just I don't remember seeing, for example, Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi together on the set, and that sort of thing. So maybe they did film them separately again with Jodie and Capaldi. But yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? It does sound like she did her bit separate. That's what it sounds like to me. But interesting, I've just got visions of somebody sort of throwing a bag over her head and bundling into a van, and you're not allowed to know where we're going and all that. And she put, it's been announced, I'm safe. And they're like, oh yeah, get that bag off. She's all right.
In you go. Yeah. Actually, talking to that and secrecy and stuff, they're doing very well, I think, so far, keeping Series 11 secret. I'm not going to say what they are, but I know there's been a few tiny little scraps leaked about where they're filming, who's directing, and I've seen one shot of a location that was made up with certain things, and so, but that's it. And I mean, the things I've seen and heard have been very unspoilery, pretty much. So it's good. Do you know what I mean? It's just, that's how I like it. It's just enough for me, because I'm not massively bothered about little spoilers. Big ones like, oh, John Sims going back. Yeah, I can do without that. But little nibbles, little breadcrumbs, I'm happy with that. But I like it. I'm liking this. It seems it's definitely tightened up, I think. Because I haven't seen many filming pics and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's good.
And also saw a little tiny nugget from the official Doctor Who Twitter account to say that the autumn broadcast is confirmed. So,
oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, so there was a lot of, some people were floating around April, some people were saying July. So they haven't specified the month, but if it's autumn, I'm going to say, what's that, September onwards?
I would have said so.
September-ish. So that's all good.
Just imagine when the first trailer drops. Oh, I'm already thinking about these things. I was sat on the sofa yesterday thinking, right, we mustn't book holidays. We mustn't be away on that first. Because what was it? Well, what did I miss? Did I miss the first episode of Series 10 or something? I remember there was something where
like
a holiday was booked, and I realised it was the same. I think it was the start of Series 10, but that mustn't happen.
Not at all.
No. So yeah.
So really looking forward to Jodie, actually.
Me too, mate.
The more I see of her and the more I see little interviews, I'm getting more and more excited. But just lastly, to comment on what you said about the secrecy thing, they are doing very, very well with that. And the thing that I like the most about all this is Mr. Chibbers. Oh, Chibbers.
Mr. Chibnall.
He's remained very, very quiet throughout the whole thing. I know he's done the odd interview here and there, but, the Moff very much, right from the off did the PR thing. He was out and about and was attending all sorts and speaking to the Radio Times and very, very vocal about, his plans for the show and what was happening and stuff like that. Whereas Chibbers has been really quiet, not heard anything really about his, he's spoken very lightly and generically about the show. He hasn't given anything specific, has he?
No, he hasn't. I'm just smirking because there's a picture of him in this month's Doctor Who magazine. He sort of sat against some blinds and he looks really miserable. And it's sort of like, oh, come on, Chris. But I'm sure he's not. I mean, I remember when he was at the Experience meeting fans last year on the day it closed or whatever, and he was having loads of selfies. He seems like a really nice chap. So, but yeah, he'd gone for that typical almost moody, I'm in a band profile picture, and, and I was thinking, no, come on, let's have a smile, Chris. They must have done another picture, but anyway, yeah.
But no, I like that we've got some quietness going on, and it's not just full on. Let's go and drag everybody to a screening of something, and let's do a tour of whatever. And because if we rewind back a couple of years, the BBC at one point were very shouty about Doctor Who because they bundle Capaldi and Jenna off around the world doing all sorts of press leading up to.
Oh, they went all over the place, didn't they?
So the BBC could have very easily said to Jodie and Chibbers and stuff, like, you guys are on the road now. You're going to do a lot of press and PR. We're going to show you off, and so I like it that it's quiet.
They still might do that, but yeah, I'm thinking. Remember when Capaldi was at the front of Houses of Parliament with the TARDIS and a big dinosaur? for the deep breath thing and all that, and some dry ice floating around, and so it'd be interesting. I think there will be. I think once we start getting near transmission, I think it seems like they've ploughed some money into this series, from what I'm hearing, like the new cameras they're using and the locations they're currently filming in, and I think hopefully we're going to see some good. I hope they're going to get behind it. Because if you think about, was it Series 9 where they had to use the previous series trailers to advertise and stuff? It was as if they'd just given up on it.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna see some good stuff closer to the transmission. Yeah.
Hopefully, just save the money that you'd spend on all that hoo-ha.
Yeah.
Just invest it into more writers and some consistency. People wouldn't go amiss.
Wouldn't go amiss. No.
Yeah. Anyways. Shall we get our metal buddy and see what he's
let's
got?
get him
in. Merch corner. Merch corner. Merch corner.
I don't know whether to be impressed or disgusted.
It's a bit rubbish, but it's pretty. It's very pretty.
Unauthorized books. As in independently published books. Got any of those?
I've got a few, and they vary. Some are actually very good, and some of them are shockingly bad. But
so we've got a new one that's just landed, and it's called Time Shadows: Second Nature, and it's been put out by Pseudoscope Publishing. This one is for charity, though.
Okie dokie.
So all of the proceeds will be donated to Code. Which is a Canadian charity for literacy and learning, mainly in Canada, but around the world as well. So, yes. So when I first read the headline, I was like, "Oh, another one." However, it's been done for charity, so that's pretty good. And the synopsis for the book is thus: everywhere he goes, I was going to say people always. Everywhere he goes, the Doctor is confronted.
He takes the weather with him.
The Doctor is confronted by mysteries and marvels, danger and delight. Along the way, he encounters a medieval knight in a supermarket, some time-displaced Vikings, a weapon from the Time War, a stain on his office carpet, which poses a threat greater than Bill can imagine, and so much more. He brings hope to the oppressed. He never gives up and never gives in to the Doctor. That is second nature.
Okay.
So it is a Capaldi story.
Yeah.
However, the cover would suggest that. However, because it's unofficial, they can't use him. So they've used a stand-in, and they've just kind of, put his face in shadow and stuff. So it's basically an elder gentleman with sort of the grey hair holding up what loosely looks like his Sonic. They can't replicate it exactly for copyright, but and in the background it's got all the cogs from the clock, the usual that you'd see for anything to do with that. But it seems quite interesting, and it's basically a collection of stories. It's not a long novel by one person. It's an anthology of short stories, essentially.
Yes. I'm just having a look to see how much it is. But I can't find
Let's have a looky. I'll tell you. So it is
£9.50.
There you go.
I've just found it.
£9.50.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like this is the second one as well. They've done two, apparently, that you can order from that website. You said Pseudoscope Publishing.
That's right, yeah. So I think the first one's just called Time Shadows, and this one's called Time Shadows: Second Nature. So could be interesting. I quite like these books that are made up of many stories. It does break it up a little bit and stuff, but we'll see. But it's for a good cause anyway. So if this is your thing, if you're into sort of the indie publishing and people writing Doctor Who outside of the BBC, this could be for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dalek Tat, for that. No, he's not listening. Okay, the other thing on his little metal tray is a new Big Finish release that's coming out in April. It's an 8th Doctor box set, and it's called Ravenous. And listen to the trailer earlier. It sounds pretty good. There's some cast details, but not much in terms of synopsis yet. But what is exciting to me is that I'm seeing a name on here, and it says that Nicholas Rowe is playing the part of the Candyman. Now, is that the Candyman? Because I think it is.
I would
but
say
I might
so.
be wrong because it doesn't tell me much more. If you go to the Big Finish website, there's not a lot on there. But so there's going to be 4 stories. Their Finest Hour by John Durney. How to Make a Killing in Time Travel by John Durney. World of Damnation by Matt Fitton. He's good. He writes quite a lot of Big Finish. And Sweet Salvation by Matt Fitton. So 4 new stories. I'm guessing they'll all be linked in some way in this new box set called Ravenous. It's Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor, obviously. Nicola Walker playing the part of Liv Chanka, who seems to be starring in quite a lot of the recent McGann stuff, which is good because she's actually very good as well. So, yes, I'm liking. I mean, it's good. I like all the sort of 8th Doctor stuff for Big Finish is normally a pretty good standard. So, again, this is for me a pre-order. I'll be getting it.
Yeah, for me
also.
Like
McGann. I love McGann on Big Finish. Yeah.
Also stars Ian McNeice as Winston Churchill. Yes,
I'd missed that. Yeah,
which is good.
Yeah, and Mark Bonar. It's coming back as the 11. I've just realised. And the 11 popped up in
Doom Coalition.
Doom Coalition. Yes. And he was very good in that first story, actually.
Very good.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
I would say that it is the Candyman that we're familiar with because they've spelled it with a K.
I think so. I listened to the trailer earlier and I didn't hear that voice, but maybe I missed it because I did get interrupted. As I said to you earlier, I kind of had it on in the background. Yeah, I think it is spelled with a K, so that would be awesome. The cover they've put up, I'm assuming, is just that's not the actual cover yet. I assume that's going to be, it might be, but
that
I think that's
cover. Yep.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought it was just like what do you call it?
Temporary
cover. Is that? Oh, because I was hoping to see a picture of the Candyman.
I like this cover. It's really cool.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it. Yeah, it's fine.
You're like, I just wanted it completely different.
I just wanted, well, it's just for anyone for listening. It's just a picture of McGann with Doctor Who Ravenous written across it, and like a nice tint of blue. Is it?
You're colourblind, aren't you?
Yeah, it is blue, isn't it?
It's purple.
Oh, is it?
It's a very deep. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's nothing wrong with the cover. I just assumed it was a temporary one because there's not much going on it, and they do tend to Big Finish covers do tend to be busy these days. So
that's true. Yeah, but I think because this is one of the McGann series. Oh, I don't know. Actually, you could be right. I don't know. But it's out in April, so that's not too far away. So they've normally nailed the cover by now.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they've got Big Finish all the way up to August that you can pre-order and stuff, and they've all got the final covers. So who knows?
They've started doing more box sets, haven't they? How do you feel about this? Because like the 4th Doctor range, which I've really enjoyed, but got very behind on. So the new 4th Doctor set, they've done it as kind of like, I don't know what they're up to now. 7, is it? 7.1. Yep. So they're doing it sort of more as box sets rather than individual releases, which in a way I think I prefer, because it saves you having to. It's like one sort of bulk payment, but you've got like the whole set. And because I've fallen really behind with the 4th Doctor adventures, and it saddens me because I want to have anything with Tom Baker on my shelf. Do you know what I mean? So I'm kind of, but with the 8th Doctor, they've started doing box sets, and they have been for a while. And I think I prefer it because then you've got it. You know that you're not going to, in 3 months' time, think, no, I'm already 3 CDs behind. You've just got that set for that, few months. So I think I like the way they go with it. I think. I
like it because
you're download. I mean, I know you're going download only, aren't you? But
yeah, but I do like it because for the reason that you said, that you don't feel like you're slipping so far behind because you've got it and you can you'll get round to it. But so I think it kicks off with the 4th Doctor Series 7 Volume 1, which comprises of how many stories?
Well, the 4th Doctor one.
1, 2, 3, 4 stories in each box set.
Yeah, and you normally get like a disc of a behind the scenes as well. So they're normally good value for like 20 odd quid for the pre-order. Yeah.
So 25 quid for that for CD or 20 quid for the digital. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But anyways, Mr. McGann will be joining us in April for Ravenous. Interesting title.
Yeah, I'm ravenous. It makes it look like he's hungry. I'm ravenous. I need some dinner.
Yeah. That's going to do for merch. We've kicked old Tat out the door.
Yeah.
He's off in his searches for more stuff for next week. Right then. Review time. Adam.
Gary.
What have we got this week?
Gary. This week, 10th Doctor story, The School Reunion.
Good morning, class. Are we sitting comfortably?
May I introduce Miss Sarah Jane Smith?
Hello.
K9!
3 months ago, it turns out all the kitchen staff were replaced.
See, there's definitely something going on. I was right to call you out.
You seem to be something new.
Maximum defense mode.
Boy in class this morning. Got knowledge way beyond planet Earth.
Affirmative, Master.
The time has come, my brothers. Today we shall become gods.
Oh my God.
Pain and loss, they define us as much as happiness or love. Everything has its time, and everything ends.
Swelled up a little bit there.
Old Sarah Jane back.
Sarah Jane. I can hear people screaming at me as well, going, "It's just school reunion, not the." I don't know why I put that on the front. School reunion.
Yes. Who fans are very particular.
I know. As soon as I said it, I was like, people are going to be, should we go back and edit? Oh, it's too late. It's gone.
Yeah. When I put a tweet out for our review of the show that went out just after Christmas, where we reviewed Twice Upon a Time.
Yeah.
In the tweet, it got abbreviated to TUAT.
Yeah.
I think I put TAUT accidentally in the tweet.
Yeah, I saw it.
And I tell you what, I had so many tweets saying, "You've spelt it wrong. It's like, just relax.
No, it must be right.
The world's not going to end because
Gary, for the greater good."
Who fandom sometimes, honestly.
I know. As soon as I said the school reunion, I was like, no, there's no that. Oh, it's too late. The intro started. Oh, it's all gone.
Yeah. You'd have like 1 million people coming down like a ton of
coming
bricks.
at me. Yeah.
Anyways, School Reunion came out in April 2006. Wowzers, it's 12 years old.
Oh, don't.
Crikey Moses.
Oh, no.
Yes, it was written by Toby Whithouse. It was directed by James Hawes, and it stars Mr. Tennant, obviously, Rose and Mickey, and then also we're joined by Liz Sladen as Sarah Jane, Anthony Head as the headmaster, Mr. Finch, and K9.
K9!
Yay. Annoying little dog.
Bad dog.
I'm joking.
Bad dog.
So plot is thus the school in question, which is called something like Deffrey Vale School. That's the one. The results have been absolutely superb since the new headmaster have taken over, so much so that it's attracted the attention of the now sort of journalistic undercover investigator that is Sarah Jane. Also at the same time, Mickey has alerted the Doctor and Rose to some strange goings on. So it's kind of a double team up to investigate that they didn't know the other one was investigating until they bump into each other. And then when they do, it's up to them to put a stop to the evil plan that is being carried out by the Krillitanes. So these creatures essentially go from world to world and destroy and conquer and take on some of the physical aspects of the species that they've conquered. So School Reunion in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Overall, before we get into detail, what did you reckon to this one?
I've always quite liked this story. I've always liked it a lot, actually. I think it's a nice, easy watch. It's not complicated, but there's enough going on in it. And there's some lovely moments in it. It's kind of a big story in a little setting, I always think. Do you know what I mean? It's got it all going on in there. You've got this big takeover plan, but it's all kind of just flows very nicely, I think. And there's some awesome scenes in it, which every time I'm watching it, I'm just waiting for certain bits to happen. I really like it. I really do. I've watched it quite a few times over the years, and I think nothing will ever quite compare to the very first time I watched it when it first went out. because I was just blown away by Sarah Jane and K9 coming back and all of that. And the ending absolutely obliterated me on a first watch. I was a complete sobbing mess when this first went out on TV. And it still chokes me up every time, but not quite to that extent. So nothing. I'll never love it as much as I did when I first watched it, but I still really enjoy watching this one. I just think it's a very accessible story, and even if you're not like a massive Doctor Who fan, I think you could sit down and watch this. I think it really gets that balance right. Of appealing to a casual viewer and hardcore fans. I think so. Yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me. This one.
Cool.
What about you, my friend?
I really enjoy this story. I think it's a good mix of sort of classic nods, obviously with Sarah Jane and K9, with some great performances. Really, I really like obviously Tennant in this one, but Rose and Mickey are really good. The interactions between Rose and Sarah Jane are really, really good. Mickey's quite funny, and I really like Anthony Head as well. He's a great actor, that guy. So, and the story overall is quite fun as well. It's just a good sort of no nonsense adventure. There's not much to really think about. No, you don't have to you don't walk away thinking, what the bloody hell was that all about?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just a good old fashioned Doctor Who adventure with some decent action and suspense and some humour. Yeah, it just all mixes together to make a really cool episode, really.
Watching it last night, it really flows as well. Like the pacing is quite fast paced, isn't it? It really sort of zips along this episode. And then there is a scene I absolutely love where it's probably really the only time it just stops to breathe. And it's the scene where the Doctor meets up with Finch by the swimming pool to say, what's your plan? Because if I don't like it, it's going to stop. And I absolutely love that scene. Do you remember last week when we were reviewing the Third Doctors, where I said to you, I love it when the Doctor and the main baddie get together and just have a little chat. And that's exactly what they do in this, isn't it? They get together, they circle each other a little bit, they have this sort of little chat. There's no big fight. It's not, it's just that's why I love the Doctor, because that's what he does. He doesn't go in and have a fist fight. He goes in and has a chat with the big bad guy, and he's not scared of the big bad guy. He's just like, well, I'll just stop you if I don't like it. I just think it's a great scene. It's a very nice, quiet moment in a otherwise quite fast-paced story, and I just love the way that they just both walk off. The Doctor to stop him to carry on with his plan. It's brilliant, yeah. And like you said, you don't have to. It's not taxing on the brain, is it? You can just sit there. You know exactly what's going on. It's it's good. It's a good watch.
It is good, and I like the fact that it is emotional, like you said. Especially the ending. It does pull a little bit, doesn't it? But I like that Russell T Davies didn't. Although it's written by Toby Whithouse, I think this was very much an original idea from Russell. Apparently, this was one of the things that he said he wanted to do when he pitched it way back in 2003. He said that he wanted to have a classic companion come back into the story to show what happened. I think he did say specifically Sarah Jane.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to show what happens to a companion once the Doctor's left. So obviously we know that in The Hand of Fear, Sarah Jane gets left behind. And like you said earlier, we don't really know what happened to her. So I think Russell was very keen to almost sort of link up the classic and the New Year's together, but not make it overly fan servicey.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to make a classic episode and make it over the top about Classic Who, but it's just, that amalgamation of the two things and how Sarah Jane's kind of got on with her life and, she's still doing it. It was really cool that there was a really nice moment, where the Doctor, when Sarah Jane finds the TARDIS in the school.
Oh, I love that scene.
With that beautiful bit of Russell.
And it pans round and he's just behind it. Oh, so good.
That when she first clapped eyes on it and that really cool Murray Gold comes in and it's brilliant. And then when he says to her, she's quite angry with him to begin with, isn't she? Because she's quite miffed that he left her and, travelling with the Doctor, which we hear many times from companions, it becomes their life, they become obsessed with it almost. And it's really cool that they deal with that immediately. You know, they don't sort of make it this sort of sad thing throughout the entire story that, you know, she's still harping on about it. You know, the Doctor's quite upbeat about it. He's like, yeah, but here you are. You know, you're investigating, you're doing your thing, you're being Sarah Jane. So
yeah,
I really like that they didn't kind of linger too much on, you know, why she was left and, you know, she's still angry with him, you know, and all that stuff. They just sort of have that nice little moment, and then there's a couple of little conversations afterwards, but, you know, they kind of deal with it and then move on, and then you're dealing with the threat that's imminent there and then. And I think that's a lot of it's down to Russell and Toby Whithouse for that. I think they've really sort of, although Toby wrote the script, I think between the two of them, they came up with a really, really good story.
Yeah,
amazingly, that fits in 45 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say, it wraps up really quickly at the end, doesn't it? It just, you know, but it didn't feel rushed to me. It just felt like a nice little nugget of, yeah, that's done. K9 blows them all up. And I remember, like, the first time I watched it thinking, oh no, I can't believe they've blown up K9. I thought, you know, they've only brought him back to blow him up, and that's really sad. Oh, he's back. And I was just like, that was amazing.
It's really sad, that bit. Because you do think that he's going to sacrifice. Well, he does sacrifice.
I did.
Himself.
I honestly thought. Oh, I remember just thinking at the time, you know, like fans are going to go mad. They've actually killed off K9 finally, and then of course, you know, Mark 4 or 5 or whatever he is comes out at the end, and again they don't just do that, but they then use it to bring home the analogy of. He's replaced me with a new one, and she's like, yeah, he does that, and it's like, oh my god, you know, that's the whole point of what it's just brilliant piece of writing at the end there. It's superb. Yeah,
that's one of the strong points of this story, I would say, is the writing, because when you're, if it was just the Doctor with Rose and Mickey, that's one thing, but when you have to include Sarah Jane and K9 from the classic era in there as well, I imagine it would have been a fairly difficult script to write, because as I said, you have to, you know, you have to appreciate that Sarah Jane's back, because she's a very loved companion from the classic years, as well as K9. But you can't really, because, and I hate doing this, but it has to be mentioned, but I would say that if the Moth wrote this episode, you know, we'd probably see K9 back every week. You know, and it would be a very different situation of how he dealt with Sarah Jane. It'd probably be a bit more melancholy and a bit more, you know. So I'm really glad that this fell into Russell's era and not the Moth's era.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I was going to say, actually, talking about the writing for Rose and Mickey, what's good about it is Toby Whithouse uses them as kind of like our eyes to fill in, you know, to anyone that may not, you know, watch Doctor Who, the classic series, so like the younger viewers that they've only known it since Eccleston to come back. Yeah. He uses Rose and Mickey as our eyes to explain who Sarah Jane is, who K9 is. It's, if you know what I mean, if you watch it, they're like asking all the questions that perhaps if you didn't know, you'd be asking. So what's that? That's K9. It's, you know, he's my friend and all this. And this is Sarah Jane. We used to travel together. And they're sort of being us. They're sort of being the new viewer in the story. And it's again, it's a great way that they're written in, I think, because they don't feel like they're given stuff to do, aren't they? Like everyone's got their own little thing. I mean, I know Rose gets a bit jealous and all that. But again, really, it's just to sort of show the difference, you know, between the two companions. I do find that slightly annoying, actually, when I watch it now. It does seem a little, because she gets jealous straight away. She's like, as soon as Sarah Jane, she's like, who's that? That's probably just a time thing, you know, to get the episode moving. But I did think, why is she jealous from the get-go? You know what I mean? It's like,
no, I read you, but I think, well, you nailed it there. The having Rose and Mickey go through with the adventure and kind of be in our eyes, if you like, because they're asking all the questions that maybe newer fans of the show wouldn't necessarily know. So if you'd have picked up Doctor Who, I assume there would have been lots of now Doctor Who fans that would have potentially started watching it from this series. Maybe, you know, previous people have said, oh, you've not watched Doctor Who, I should watch it, a new series starts soon. So and they've never watched it before, so they don't know who Sarah Jane is or K9 or any of that. So it's great that they use them as a device to open the eyes, if you like, of you know, a little snippet into what was before.
Yeah.
But what I also really like about the interaction between Rose and Sarah Jane is that it's also subtly underlying the kind of character that the Doctor is. Because it's very apparent that he's never mentioned Sarah Jane or any of his past companions to Rose. So she feels like she's the number one, this is all fresh and new for me and the Doctor. She's completely unawares that he's done this for, hundreds of years with different companions.
Yeah.
So when it finally hits her that, he's got this vast history of previous adventures with previous companions, Sarah Jane being one of them, that kind of says a lot about the Doctor's character as well, sort of under the surface. Although it's on the surface, it's very much there's that very jealous, catty, saucer of milk for table Rose.
Yeah.
Underneath all that, it sort of highlights, why hasn't the Doctor mentioned any of the companions before to Rose? Seeing as they're quite close, and they've obviously got that bond and that relationship. It's a bit like, I know everyone has skeletons in a closet, but why hasn't the Doctor even referenced any of his past companions to Rose? So it does bring her down, with a bit of a bump to reality that she's not the first companion and this is not his first rodeo, so to speak.
I love the way Tennant does that as well, because he like you said, he's quite straight with Rose, isn't he? Mm-hmm. He kind of gets straight to the point of like, well, look, this is why. And it's interesting because he says like, I don't age, you do. And although I think that's, they've kind of changed that, haven't they, recently? The Doctor does age, actually, it would seem, if you look at like Matt Smith's final. So that's kind of gone out the window in the Moff era. But I know what they're trying. I know what he's trying to say. It still works just about. But so he's sort of saying, you'll die, and I don't want to see all my companions die in front of me. I'd rather just see you go off doing your thing, and then I move on. And I think it's a really important scene, something I'd never really thought about in terms of the Doctor's personality. And he describes it as that's the curse of the Time Lords, is that we just go on, and you don't, And I think that's a really cool little point. I'd never really sort of thought, about it in those terms, like, the Doctor is different, and obviously you sort of then start putting yourself in his shoes, thinking, well, what would I do?
Yeah. Well, that's precisely it. It's not until he's kind of forced into a corner by Rose to actually tell her what the situation is, because otherwise, if they hadn't have bumped into Sarah Jane, maybe Rose would still not have known about anything else beforehand. So it's very interesting, very cleverly done in that short space of time.
Yeah.
And I really like the emphasis on the Doctor having to deal with Classic and his current companions, because although he's kind of taken it in his stride, he's dealt with Sarah Jane, and he's dealt with Rose. It's the lines, especially by Mickey, are really funny. He's like,
the X and the Misses,
the X and the Misses, mate. He's really winding him up, and so it does put the emphasis on the Doctor having to kind of deal with these two opposing, forces, if you like.
Yeah.
So very, very cleverly done.
Yeah, no, as I said, the sort of jealousy thing slightly irks me, but it needs to be there in terms of bringing all that story into it. And it is interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at the Doctor and how he leads his life, which perhaps it may not have been sort of touched upon before in the series. So it does need it. Yeah.
What did you think so like you said, it's paced very well. It moves along relatively quickly.
It does, yeah.
Before you know it, the episode's been and gone. Because it's one of those episodes where there's something, the scene by scene, if you like, it just rattles along really nicely. You're not left, which is also quite well done, because it kind of has these peaks and troughs where, stuff's happening. It might just be a scene where all the kids are in the classroom, mesmerized by what they're doing, and they're kind of on autopilot, crunching out all these equations and so on. And then like Murray Gold music is thundering along.
Oh, it's he's really going for it, isn't it? Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it will cut to a very quiet conversation, and then we'll go back into some actiony stuff with the Krillitanes, and they might have eaten somebody. All you see is their silhouettes in the door, and they've eaten somebody, and then we go back to something quiet. So it's really got that great scene by scene, up and down And that contributes to you flying by that 45 minutes. So at the end, when you're saying goodbye to Sarah Jane again, which is very sad, but then you're off on another adventure, you just sit back and you're like, whew, where did that time just go?
It did. And also, because I've seen it quite a few times, when I put this on last night, I was thinking I might, because I know it quite well, I was thinking I'd probably be sat there watching it, but, looking at my phone. So I wasn't. I was really enjoyed it again. And it, like you said, it went by in no time. So, yeah.
What did you think to the monsters in this one then, these krillatines?
I think they're an interesting monster, but they look dated, obviously, but that's things like that don't tend to bother me really. I mean, I think that in terms of the effects, I think they haven't worn that well, but I think other bits have. So the bit where the krillatine flies in front of the moon, I think still looks beautiful as an effect and stuff. But I don't know. They're an interesting monster in what they're trying to be. The fact that they evolve and take bits that they like and all that sort of stuff. So that's quite interesting. But it's weird because I sort of like Anthony Head's character probably more than the actual krillatine monster itself, if you know what I mean. I probably would have liked to have seen him in it a bit more because I actually think he's really good in it. He sort of plays it quite understated sort of performance rather than being a big shouty villain. He's quite sort of cool, isn't he? And quite calculating. It's all, I've forgotten as well. The bit at the end where K9's shooting things and Mr. Finch is like screaming. Yeah, it looks like Anthony Head's eyes are going to pop out of his head. He's really going for it at the end.
Very much so. Yeah.
Is he actually doing that? Have they like sort of CGI'd his eyes, or it looks like his eyes are going to pop out at one point? He's like screaming, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It does look. He's really good with the physical stuff. If that's the case. Yeah.
Well, I think he's pretty good in it. I think if anything, we could have had a little bit more of him. But yeah, he's a good sinister sort of counterbalance to the Doctor, isn't he? I think in this one, I like that
very
much. But
what
do you think of the krillatine though, as a monster?
Yeah, I don't mind. They did have a sort of creepiness to them. I found them to be more like a kind of sort of vampire-esque.
Yeah,
kind of monster. It's really, if anyone's seen, because there's a scene where they break into the school at night and they're looking for them, and when they go into a classroom, the Doctor looks up and they're hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah,
and that's really creepy. If anyone's ever seen this really old vampire film called The Lost Boys from the 80s,
I remember that great film.
Very similar scene where they break into the cave and they're looking for them and they can't find them and look up and they're all hanging from the ceiling. It reminded me of that, old school kind of vampire. And there's a couple of scenes like that as well where you don't see it directly. They were quite clever because they didn't have the budget to do a full-on, person morphing into one of these creatures and stuff. They did this clever thing where they always used to close the classroom door and then you'd just see the silhouette and it would, the wings would come out and you'd hear this horrifying scream and you knew that behind the door somebody was getting nastily devoured and stuff. So I think as a creature, they didn't really kind of set off any, oh my God, this is a new classic.
They're not iconic enough.
Yeah. However, for the sake of the story, I thought they worked really well. They had this really menacing, like I said, this vampire kind of thing going on, which is quite good.
Because a couple of the other teachers are really unnerving as well, especially when they're in human form, aren't they? They're quite sort of sinister. And like you said, it's I like the fact we get to see the sort of more graphic bits are done in shadows. It's left to your imagination. There's a great bit where they're walking down the stairs and then they transform back into human. So by the time they get to the other end of the stairs, they're human. Do you know the bit I mean? That's a really nice, simplistic idea, but it was probably quite hard to actually put on screen, but it works really well. That they walk down the stairs as krillatine and then turn the corner off camera and come back down the stairs as human. I thought that's really cool. I like that. So they're not iconic, but you're right. Because we've got all the other stuff going on with Sarah Jane and K9 and everything, all of that, which for me is the best part of the episode, is all that stuff with Sarah Jane. I guess they're just right. They're in there enough to do their scary bit, but they're not iconic enough to overshadow the other stuff, I suppose.
Indeed. And I really like Anthony Head's performance.
He's good.
Very chilling and very sort of sinister character. He's got that really good facial expression where, you know, because they slicked his hair back and he's got the very stern face, you know, he looks like that, you know, any moment he could, you know, sort of snap and go a bit mad really. But yeah, very cool and collective on top.
There's a cool bit where he sort of turns and does this weird thing with his feet as well, isn't there? It's as if he sort of thought, it's as though he sort of thought about his character, thinking, I'm not human, so I might sort of, you know, turn in a strange way and all that. You know, little things like that. Do you know what I mean? It sort of zooms in on him and he sort of crossed his feet together and stuff like that. Little things like that. I think it's a nice touch.
Yeah, and some really, really sinister little scenes as well, like where the bells rang at school and all the students are sort of running around the corridor and up the stairs, and the doctor's looking over the stairs down at the floor, and he's down there.
Oh yeah.
And he senses that the doctor can see him. And he's got this really sort of creepy look as his head turns round and stares right back at the doctor. And you think, oh, this is creepy. But
yeah.
So like you said, not iconic, but for the sake of the story, I think they work really well. And of course, Anthony Head's, it's not his first time being involved in Doctor Who either. He was, did you pick up the years ago, those small animated adventures of the 10th Doctor and Martha?
Yeah, oh yeah, I've got them, yeah.
One called The Infinity Quest, and he was the voice of Balthazar.
Oh, okay. I'd completely forgotten that, but yes, I've got it, yeah.
Some really cool behind the scenes on that. Anyone that's not watched that Infinity Quest animated short, there's a really cool behind the scenes of David Tennant and the other people in the recording studio.
Oh, okay.
That's quite interesting. And he also did the narration for Doctor Who Confidential.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh,
of course.
Good old Confidential.
Yeah. Oh, I miss those days.
Yeah. Good days. Good times. Can I just say the other bit I love with his character, though, is there's a scene when he offers the Doctor the chance to save his own people, which I thought was the way those two play that scene, I thought was great, actually. Because it looks like the Doctor's considering it for half a second, doesn't it? It looks almost as if he...
Yeah.
I was going to say that's the other bit I just like between those two. But yeah, it does look like for a second the Doctor might. But then he's like, no.
Yeah. Well, that's Sarah Jane that kind of prods him back to.
Snaps him out of it.
Yeah, like a sensible decision, isn't it? Because I think the first time, like you mentioned earlier, that scene where they're in the swimming pool and he's kind of giving the Doctor a kind of ultimatum almost, you know. It's like, we are going to crack this code. And when we do, you know, we'll be masters of all of space and time. But I'm giving you the choice, you know. And obviously at that point, he's very much like, no, you must be kidding, mate. You know, we're going to stop you. But then, yeah, like you said, that second time, the Doctor does sort of give it a second thought, doesn't he? And you think, surely not. But good old Sarah Jane sort of snaps him out of it.
And then Tennant gets to do a bit of the good old rage acting that he's so good at when he throws the chair. I do love that bit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great stuff. And I think that's another nice little nod to Sarah Jane, I think, because a few times especially with Tom's character, she was very much the voice of reason at times, and sort of kept him grounded, if you like, a few times, especially when he's off in angry Time Lord mode. And I think that was a nice little way for her to interject there as well, because she could have just been an everyday companion. And I use that term very loosely, but she could have just been, you know, following the Doctor around and not doing much. But the fact that she stopped him from making a potentially, you know, catastrophic decision there is what Sarah Jane's good at.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't pander to the Doctor. I'm thinking about like Brain and Morbius when he's being all sulky.
Oh, at the beginning.
She's like, she just doesn't. She doesn't have any of it, does she? She's like, oh, I know who you are. She just takes the Mickey out of him as if like, I'm not, you know, I'm not pandering to your silly childish ways. You know, it is one of the things that makes Sarah Jane great. Yeah. No,
I agree, mate. She's very, very good. Let's talk about, so the supporting cast are quite smallish, really. One of the children in the school, the little lad with the glasses who isn't being affected by the brainwashing, if you like, the chips. Yeah, he's the one that sort of saves the day almost, especially in the eyes of the other children in the school. They love him at the end. They're all cheering for him. That's like the classic old, you know, he's not the best looking lad in the school. He's a little bit tubby and, you know, you can tell that he's not Mr. Popular, but he comes good in the end, and he's like, everyone's cheering for him. It's such a great little moment.
Yeah, it's a nice scene. Yeah,
his character, he's quite cool. I think
it's Milo, isn't it?
It is Milo, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
He also does get an important thing to do as well. He smashes the fire alarm because he works out that they're like bat-like creatures, so that it'll be really loud when he.
Yeah.
So that's quite cool. So he gets that to do, which is nice as well.
Yeah.
And just brings him into the story a little bit more, makes him a bit more important, doesn't it? So yeah, that's good.
The other people are really just like the other teachers and like the other dinner ladies, I suppose, that work with Rose. You know, they're all sort of in on it, if you like. Let's talk about K9.
K9, yeah.
So I assume you were very happy that John Leeson was obviously voicing the dog.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I loved it when they opened the car boot and K9's in there. I loved it then. I love it now. I was always a bit sad that he looked so battered, and but it's amazing when he comes out all brand new at the end. That just really was the cherry on the cake for me. I was just like, oh, amazing. Yeah. No, I'm delighted to have him back, and I think it works brilliantly because you've got Mickey, obviously realizes that he's the tin dog in a brilliant little scene with Sarah Jane, and so that bit when he's in the car with K9 I think is just great, when he's like, we have a car, and he's like, yes I know we have, but what are we going to do, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think K9 works great in the story, and it and I love all the sort of stuff with him and Mickey, like Doctor saying leave the window open ajar. He's like, he's a tin dog. He's like, I'm talking about you. And all that. So there's some really good stuff going on with Mickey, K9, the Doctor, and all the rest of the cast. So yeah, I was very pleased to have him back.
Yeah, he is the voice, isn't he?
He is the voice. Yeah,
I mean, without a doubt.
Yeah, definitely.
And it is really sad. I remember the first time seeing this episode when the Doctor says to him, yeah, but if you won't be able to survive, basically, if you do this. And his only reply is affirmative.
Affirmative, yeah.
And that just killed me. Because I thought, that's just a silly thing, isn't it? You do have an attachment to a non-human. It's been, many films have played on it,
Yeah.
And when he sacrifices himself, I thought that was it. I thought that was the end of K9. I thought,
did.
The first time I saw it, I was like, this is awful. This is terrible. But should have known. Russell, he's a big softy at heart, isn't he? Old Russell.
Yeah.
So, should have known that he was going to come back. But it is a very sad moment because the Doctor hasn't got a choice. It's either that or they escape. He hasn't got any other options. So it's all down to K9.
Yeah, and I like that because it's like you said, it's just brilliantly all tied up as well, and his little batteries are running down. It's like his final thing, isn't it, to do? It's weird actually because I wrote. Obviously, we know that Sarah Jane and K9, after they leave the TARDIS at the end, we know that they go off to do the Sarah Jane adventures, and I don't know if Russell, I'm sure he had it in his mind at that point. But it's interesting that they went on to do that because one of the notes I wrote was this story feels like a Sarah Jane adventure, and then I was like, oh, you Wally, this was way before the Sarah Jane adventures. Of course it was. They hadn't even done that series yet. So it's like the forerunner, isn't it? It was almost as if let's see if this is popular, and then hopefully we'll get a spin-off series, which thankfully they did, and thankfully. Liz Sladen did come back because it says I've read that she initially turned it down. She initially didn't want to return because she I don't know. I can't remember why.
It would be a well-rounded enough reason for her character to be in it. She thought she was just going to have a little
cameo or something.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that she changed her mind because she then sort of read the script or whatever and decided, oh, actually, I'm quite central to this story, and she did it. And I mean that, obviously that led on to Sarah Jane Adventures. So it's so good that she did decide to come back, and it went on to do that. And as I said, it does feel when you watch the Sarah Jane Adventures, this has that same nice light tone, but with a very sinister edge to it that a lot of the Sarah Jane Adventures have. So it's quite nice to have it in that same sort of the feel, if you like. So I just kept thinking that all the way through. This feels like a Sarah Jane Adventure. And I was like, yeah, that wasn't actually on when this was aired, but it went on to be, which is fantastic.
That's really cool. And interestingly enough, we've got some Sarah Jane Adventure reviews coming up in a couple of months' time, haven't we?
We have, which I'm very excited about. And I think most people, when we see that last shot of Sarah and K9 going off together, I think most of us wanted more. So you know what I mean. I mean, I certainly sat there thinking, "Oh no, I hope they come back." And then to get like a whole spin-off show with them is just amazing. And I'm really looking forward to reviewing them because I've seen lots of them, but there are lots that I haven't seen. I haven't seen all of the episodes, so I'm really looking forward to getting into them.
Yeah. I've seen one episode out of the whole lot. So
Have you? Okay.
I'm really looking forward to watching it all fresh because there's probably lots of our listeners that have like, where have you been?
I know.
This is so I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I'm really looking forward to looking at more Sarah Jane adventures.
Me too.
Yeah, based on this episode, really, because like you said, it does feel a bit like Sarah Jane.
Forerunner.
Yeah, Forerunner.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about Mickey and Rose? I know we spoke about them a little bit, but really like Mickey's banter, if you like, in this one. I like
Mickey in this.
He's on form because in the previous stories, he's been very, very unhappy that Rose has decided to, drop sticks and just go off and travel with the Doctor. He's always voiced vocally that he's unhappy about that, but it seems in this episode he's just kind of accepted it and he's kind of taken a humorous approach to it. Because he gives it both, like we said earlier, he says to the Doctor, the missus and the ex, so he's winding the Doctor up a little bit, and then because of all this, he now sees it as an opportunity to sort of lay into Rose a little bit. So by saying, he's essentially saying, you thought he was Mr. Perfect, but now, he's got all this past that you didn't know about and he's not a one-woman man. And so he really sort of uses this opportunity to really nail home the fact that it's not all wine and roses that you thought it was going to be. Excuse the pun. And I think Mickey's brilliant in this one, especially that side of it, but also like you said, when he's like, "Oh my God, I'm the tin dog."
Yeah,
he's just brilliant, Mickey. I love him in this one.
I do. I think he's great in it as well. I really enjoy all those moments. And once again, it's because Rose is quite harsh to him. And I know. Last time we said this, one of our listeners kind of said, "Well, don't feel too sorry for him because," and they sort of gave us some examples of why Mickey wasn't perfect, and all that sort of stuff. But I like the character of Mickey, and I do think Rose is a little bit unkind to him, and so it is nice to see that the shoe being on the other foot for a change, and him being like, "See, it's not all me. You got all these things going on as well." And that scene at the end where he's like, "Can I come?" And the Doctor's like, yeah, because the Doctor's been a bit harsh to him as well, from what I remember. Or maybe it's more the Ninth Doctor.
The Ninth Doctor was...
Ninth Doctor doesn't take him, but... so it's really cool when the Doctor's like, yeah, go on then. And Rose just is so...
She's seething, isn't she?
She's seething. Yeah, she's absolutely seething. Would have been interesting if Sarah Jane had gone off for an adventure, actually, but... It's perfect that she doesn't.
Yes.
It's perfect that she says no. It's kind of closure for her at last, isn't it? But yeah, no, it's lovely. And what's the next story? Girl in the Fireplace. So we kind of get a cool TARDIS team then, don't we? We get Mickey, the Doctor, and Rose, and they work really well in that story. So yeah, but he's great in it. Gets some great moments. Yeah,
really cool. And yeah, I agree. I think that's what I mentioned earlier. I think if the Moff had been involved in this, if this had fell into his era with Matt Smith, maybe, I honestly think that he would have tried to have used Sarah Jane, a lot more.
Probably. Yeah.
If, I know sadly she's not with us anymore, but, if she was, more involved in the story, I just think that he would have brought her back more, and have tried to have shoehorned her into, more stories and all that lot. So I really like that Russell just closed it off and, Sarah Jane's been back, but, like you said, she's got closure now. And
it's like she doesn't feel like a plot point, does she? Russell's
no.
like, that's unfortunately what the Moff tends to do, is use things for plot points instead of having any reason. Whereas Russell sat down and thought, okay, so Sarah Jane gets dropped off. What would she have been doing between now and then, and how would she be feeling if she saw the Doctor again? And it's which is perfect, because that's exactly what we would be sort of thinking. And like you said, it just really nicely rounds off that sort of chapter that she says, because she says to the Doctor, doesn't she, just say goodbye so that it's done, because you didn't do it last time. And that's it's perfect.
It is, yeah. And I really like Rose in terms of her this jealousy thing that she has going on with Sarah Jane. At first I was like, oh, this is quite annoying, but when you see them two kind of progress through, again, amazingly through that very short space of time. So initially they hate Rose, she hates Sarah Jane immediately because, the green-eyed monster just sort of pops up immediately. But then as they get on, they have a bit of a laugh and they wind the Doctor up. And so I like that, because they could have left that kind of awkwardness between them. They could have left it there. But no, it was really good to see them progress as sort of really liking each other towards the end. Because they kind of get to the point, don't they, where they're arguing again and they just stop and look at each other and like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
So
they talk about the Doctor stroking the TARDIS console and stuff, which sort of they slowly bond, which is really nice. I think.
Yes. Yeah. So I do like that. I mean, Rose can be a tad annoying with her sometimes, the way that her character comes across. You just think, oh, here we go, it's Rose having the ump again, and Rose having a bit of a dig because she's not happy about something, which Mickey has to deal with, which is what we were saying.
Yeah.
But I like the progression that she has with Sarah Jane. So at the end, them two are all good, so to speak.
I do. I like the progression. I agree with you. But I do find Rose a bit annoying in this story. She's probably the only slight negative, if you like, that I have with it. That she is a bit sort of fawning around after the Doctor, and I mean that's kind of why I like the fact the Doctor does tell her straight, because she's like, oh, I thought maybe we were, and he's like, what? We were what? And he's quite sort of short with her, but I don't know. She's a bit annoying in this, but like you said, I do like the progression of the fact that her and Sarah Jane have to sort of find that middle ground and then slowly bond and become friends. So that's quite nice, yeah.
Yes. And what about Mr. Tennant himself then?
Yeah, he's great in this. I love that scene when he first meets Sarah Jane. And because I kept thinking the first time I watched it, why doesn't he just say, I'm the Doctor, it's me? But then that's great that he doesn't, because we get that brilliant scene that you mentioned earlier when he's just stood behind her when she sees the TARDIS. Oh my God, I loved that the first time. I love it now. Every time I watch it, it's just the way the camera spins round and he's just stood there and you're like, here we go.
Yeah.
She's like, she's figured it out, and she knows straight away that she's like, I thought so, or whatever. She just knows instinctively who he is and all that sort of stuff. So, but he's great in that scene, isn't he? When he first meets her and his face lights up, and I almost feel that's as much David Tennant as the Doctor, because obviously he's a big Doctor Who fan himself, isn't he, David Tennant? So he's probably, I imagine, delighted when he heard that he was going to be, working with Liz Sladen. I would think so. When he turns around and that big old grin he gives, I kind of feel that's just coming straight from his heart anyway.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if we think about Tennant being a really big Doctor Who fan, it was Tom's era that he really liked, wasn't it, when he was younger? So I remember him saying in interviews that he had posters of Tom Baker on the wall and all that stuff. So Sarah Jane probably would have been one of his fave companions, I'm guessing.
I assume so.
Because that was from his, when he was a big fan of the show. So an opportunity to work, like you said, that smile probably would have came from David Tennant, not from the Doctor, I would say. And I think there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he pops up in the Sarah Jane Adventures in one episode.
He does. Yes, it might be more than one. I can't remember, but he's definitely. Or it might just be one, like a two-parter or something. He's definitely in there. Yeah, he's definitely in there.
Yeah,
but this story suits. Sorry, mate, go on.
Just quickly, I think again in one of the behind the scenes, I think he said that when they suggested it to him, would you pop up in an episode of Sarah Jane? I think he said yes before his brain even thought about the question, because the thought of working with Liz Sladen again and all that. So, yeah, I love his interactions with Sarah Jane. Brilliant.
I was going to say, I think this story really suits his Doctor as well, because he gets to do this sort of teacher role. And even from that very first scene when he walks in and he's like, physics. That's so David Tennant's Doctor, considering this is obviously his first series as the Doctor. Still, finding his feet, finding his Doctor, if you like, at these early stages. So I think it really suits his Doctor as well, going undercover as a teacher in the school. And I just think he plays it well. And he gets to do a lot of the sort of 10th Doctor-y stuff in this as well, doesn't he? He gets to do the shouty stuff, smashing the screen. He gets to do those lovely smouldering moments of chatting to a Finch at the swimming pools. He gets to do all of that. He gets to do all the stuff with Sarah Jane, which is quite sentimental. And he does it all brilliantly. He really does. It's not one of those where I feel like he's just, going through the motions. I think he just really is great in this one.
Yes.
Yeah. And he looks a lot younger. I kept thinking when he first walks in and takes the specs off or puts them on or whatever it is, and I was thinking, blimey, Mr. Tennant, you look very young in this episode. It doesn't look, when you think of him all battered at the end of time and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's early days for his Doctor, but I think he's definitely he's already nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like this collection of stories as well. So although Tooth and Claw isn't an amazing episode, I really like David Tennant's performance in that. I thought he was really good. And then we have this one, and then we have Girl in the Fireplace afterwards, and he's really good in that as well.
That's a great story. Really like that one.
Yeah. So there are these 3 stories in a row where Tennant is just superb. He's just brilliant. So those 3 I could watch back to back really easily, because like this one, his performance is so good. He's just great. And it's not only that, he has to deal with more stuff as well. So, he has the emotional side of things with K9 at the end, and the happiness with K9 when he first sees him. He has the shouty bit, like you said, with Mr. Finch, and he has the kind of the women fighting sort of thing that he has. So he has a lot going on in this story, and he reacts brilliantly to all of it. So no complaints from Tennant, really. He's great.
In another universe as well, I always think I can so imagine Tennant's Doctor traveling with K9. Like in another, I could totally see that. Like his Doctor would work with K9. I always think, just like a bit like the 4th Doctor with K9. I could just see Tennant would be great with K9 as a companion. Like I said, in another universe, I'm glad they didn't go down that route. But when it's just like you said, it's just the interaction with K9. I can see it. There's it works.
It does, absolutely. Yeah. Anything you want to mention around this story before we get onto our scores?
No, mate. I think we've pretty much covered it. Yeah. What do you think of Murray's music in it? We do often talk about the music, because he is going for it in this one, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
Especially with the kids when they're being all It's pretty good, I think.
Yeah, it's great. It's one of those. Episodes where we see a little bit of variety from Murray's music. So we do have the action-packed music that you just mentioned, and that sort of theme that thunders around. But we also have those really little, like when Sarah Jane first sees the TARDIS, just that little theme.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So we do see a decent variety of stuff from Murray, but I really like it.
I was going to say the bit where Finch is on the roof with the Quillatane as well. There's like this little sort of sounds and stuff. So yeah, it's quite, like you said, very subtle and nice. So I thought it was pretty good in this story.
Right, scores then.
Okie dokie.
Whose turn is it to go first? I think it's
you. Is it? Or is it? I don't know. Go on, you go first.
I'll go first anyway. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
God, okay. Wow, I'm going slightly lower. I'm surprised because I really like it. I'm going 8 out of 10.
An 8, okay.
An 8, yeah. I really like it. I wouldn't put it up there as a 9 or 10, just because it is quite light. It's do you know what I mean? It's quite a light story, but then we need that every now and again. So, yeah, 8 for me.
Yeah, I gave it a 9 because, with the exception of a few scenes with Rose and a couple of little effects that haven't dated that well, I haven't got any complaints with the rest of it. I think it's just a really good enjoy, like a really cool watch, you know, especially for, I know this is going to sound very weird and almost, you know, not making sense, but if you put this on for people who haven't seen Doctor Who before, even with the references to Sarah Jane and K9, I think they would still really, really like it. And it'd be one of those like, oh man, this is great stuff. So yeah, I just really like it. Great story.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, so a 9 and an 8.
9 and an 8
from us. What did our superb listeners think? Let's jump on the Twitter first. So, CIMS 2007 says, one of the best from the Tennant era. Lead cast, all fantastic. And Sarah Jane as well. The whole story summed up in one line by Mickey, the missus and the ex, every man's worst nightmare. He says, simply brilliant, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10, all right.
Brighter Moon says, enjoyable episode. Everyone is on top form. Having Sarah Jane and K9 back really makes it something special. One of the many highlights of the Tennant era, 8 out of 10.
Cool.
Mike Friendly 03 says, I really enjoy this story. Anthony Head is a standout with a fantastic performance. Liz is on top form. However, it's Rose that I'm not a fan of. It bugs me the way she treats Sarah Jane. However, it doesn't hinder my enjoyment. 7 out of 10.
Okay, cool.
Silent Nerd C137. This is a great story to reintroduce Sarah Jane to a new audience, and you really get to understand how hard it's been for her to adjust to normal life. The concept of the Krillitane is fantastic, and I'd love to see them return. 8.5.
Cool.
Sarah Louise Baggett says, one of my fave New Who episodes. Sarah Jane and K9 is back, made it fun, nostalgic, and quite emotional at times. Great performances throughout. Definitely an enjoyable watch. I think this one deserves 10 out of 10.
10, okay.
Wowzers. The Rick Moran says, absolutely tremendous episode, extremely emotional, and settles the argument that the new era of Who is a continuation of the same show and not a reboot.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Let's have a look. Who Productions says, it made me feel nostalgic having not seen a single episode of Classic Who prior to season. Oh God, I said season.
Yeah, it's catchy.
Prior to series 2, I can't even imagine what Classic fans felt seeing Sarah back after all those years. An instant favourite when rewatching Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Frog Alapesh says, it's okay, although I'm not really a fan, particularly not at the time. And Crispy Crutch says, that moment when Sarah Jane sees the TARDIS and realises who John Smith is brilliant, ! Which is very true. That's an amazing bit.
Yeah.
Over on Facebook, Lewis Blackmore says, I've always loved this underrated classic from one of the best Who writers in the modern series. Mr. Finch, played by the fantastic Anthony Head, is a great villain along with the Krillitane, who are villains I'd like to see make a return. 9.5. What's not? This is Paul Villano. What's not to love? Frights, humour, brilliant acting. Although there's more to love for those who know the backstory of Tennant, being a fan since childhood and meeting Liz Sladen and K9 in person, and it shows. 9.5. Only if one quibble is the outdated FX.
Yeah.
Sir Jacob Burt Whistle says, a fantastic, almost flawless episode. Really do love the return of Sarah Jane and K9. Love Anthony Head as Mr. Finch, such a creepy villain. Only niggles with the episode. So I don't like the snobby attitude Rose has when Sarah Jane comes into the scene. 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, okay.
Jason Thayer, I've often wondered if this was meant to be a backdoor pilot for the Sarah Jane adventures, which is what you said, mate.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Even if it wasn't, it's still a great nod to the past, and I've often wished we could meet other older companions. 9 out of 10.
Oh, high scores so far.
Sammy Satine says, Anthony Head as the creepy Mr. Finch was an excellent casting choice. He even did his own scream for the Krillitane.
Oh, okay. He did do it then.
Yeah, the return of Sarah Jane and K9. What is not to love about that? Always good to see always good to see Mickey. Rose being an absolute cow to Sarah Jane when they first meet, I don't like. I always hated when Rose was a cow. David is excellent, as always. The pool scene The pool scene, I've lost my place now, with him and Anthony Head is just brilliant. I love this story so much. I watched Girl in the Fireplace again after this because I was in the mood. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Joseph Howarth said, this is a really solid episode through and through. Had the right amount of action, comedy, and even creepiness in the form of the Krillitane and Mr. Finch. Only niggles is Rose's behaviour in the episode. I think a lot of people are saying that.
Yeah.
Sarah Jane was brilliant, and if it weren't for this episode, then I wouldn't have seen the spin-off series. And I wouldn't have watched the classic series. She is and always will be one of my favourite companions. Good to see K9 again. I really hoped that I'd see more of him because the plot line kind of took a back seat at times, but otherwise, no other niggles. 9 out of 10.
Yes.
Dean Jones, a brilliant story from the Tennant era. An engaging plot. Anthony Head is fantastic as Mr. Finch, and I love the whole aspect of what teachers do behind closed doors, as everyone who has been to school has had those thoughts to some degree. Liz Sladen is wonderful as Sarah Jane. K9 is great, and the script has some great dialogue. Tennant is excellent, and his interaction with Sarah Jane to the awesome swimming pool confrontation is awesome. Noel Clarke is a nice addition as Mickey. I really dislike Rose's attitude. Another one.
Yeah, another one, yeah.
Overall, great story, 9 out of 10.
Another 9.
Another 9. Let's move on. Zach Jenkin says, lovely return for Sarah Jane as and K9. Shame that the CGI looks so dated in a short space of time, although 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Martin Arnold, the return of Sarah Jane. My heart skips a beat every time I watch their reunion. Never mind Amy Pond. Sarah's the real girl that waited.
Yeah.
Oh,
true. Very true.
Yes. Miles Mackenzie, a brilliant story that never gets old. Love the great return of Sarah Jane Smith and, of course, our boy, K9. The cast and crew did an excellent job on this episode, but the one thing that I hate is Rose and her moaning. He goes on to say, the VFX didn't bother me as it was made back in 2006. Overall, 8.5.
Okay.
Last couple, Jake Bottomley says, I think this is a good episode. This was the second Doctor Who story I watched. I thought the characters were great in this. When I first watched the story, I was really interested in Sarah Jane and the Doctor connection. So when I got to look through the classics with Sarah in it, I really enjoyed them. 9 out of 10. That's interesting. That's really cool to hear. You know, when you see something like this, in this case, Sarah Jane, and that prompts you to then go and visit the classic era.
I was thinking, actually, listening to some of the earlier comments. Yeah, it's really nice to think that perhaps a whole new generation of fans that watched Doctor Who since Eccleston started and were way too young to even know who Sarah Jane was. It's really nice to think that this story introduced them to that beloved character, and then and that they love and cherish her now as much as us classic fans. You know what I mean? So the younger fans, and it's just lovely that they introduced them to this brilliant character.
It's awesome. Yes. And lastly, Lewis Palmer says, a cracker from Series 2 that I keep coming back to. Love seeing Sarah Jane. Nice to see the Doctor going undercover. Anthony Head is fantastic. I always thought he'd make a great Doctor. In this, he conveys a great history and knowledge, and you see him in other things like Buffy, and he's really fantastic at being that doctor-y character. It's not a bad shout.
No, it's not a bad shout at all, actually. No.
Krillitanes are good, and original monsters definitely memorable from this era. Kenny is cool. The school setting is welcome. Great to see K9. The episode is a treat for fans of classic, and I do love it. So 8 out of 10.
Another 8 out of 10. Cool.
Yes. Did you have anything over on the Geeks Handbag, mate?
I had a couple. Yeah, I'll just, as we've had quite a lot of comments, I'll just read a couple. So, Jason House says, one of the best new episodes. Good plot, and having Sarah Jane and K9 back was awesome. The final scenes with the Doctor and Sarah are very touching. His only negative, he says, is the CGI aliens. Oh, fair enough. Bradley Willard, beautiful episode. One of the greatest and most iconic companions returns after 30 years. Liz Sladen really shines as Sarah Jane here. And he loves the interactions with the 10th Doctor. He says the plot and villains aren't bad either. He gives it 7 out of 10. Charlie Turner left quite a long comment, so forgive me for not reading it all, Charlie. But basically, he says it's one of his favourites in series 2, but he doesn't like how Rose was in a couple of the scenes. He mentions the fact that there's some bad overdubbing going on, which I must admit I did notice as well.
Yep.
He gives the episode 8.5 out of 10. Patrick Sherwood says it's brilliant, just absolutely loves the story. Thought Mr. Finch was good as a villain. Gives it a 10 out of 10. Awesome. Ooh. Patrick Worsley, brilliant episode for series 2. So it's got a good plot, and the Krilla scenes are good villains. He thinks. He gives it 13 out of 10. Blimey, 13. Reference to the Doctor there. Lee Collins, fantastic episode, made even better by including K9 and Sarah Jane. He says he misses these kinds of stories. Yeah, Lee, I know, really likes the idea and just wants us to get back to these sort of easy watching stories. So hopefully. Peter McCleary says it's one of his favourite stories. Says it's touching to find out that Sarah Jane had thought the Doctor would come back for her, and then again later when he tells Rose he leaves people behind because he can't face watching them die. There's also some classic funny lines too, like "I'd stay off the chips if I were you." Yeah, that was another little one that Mickey got in, wasn't it? Joe Oliver says Mickey Smith is the best character in this episode, and he will fight anyone who disagrees. And finally, Miles McKenzie says they need to do this more with classic companions. It proves it can work. Yes, it absolutely does. It totally worked. Yes. Which classic companions would you like to see come back?
It's interesting because I've been having this conversation on Twitter yesterday and today about favourite companions. And somebody asked me who my favourite was, and I said from the newer series it would be Donna.
Oh, I love Donna.
But from the classic series, I had to really think, and there was about 3 or 4 that I couldn't decide upon. I said Ace in the end.
Oh, yes. Awesome.
But I would love to see Ace come back, but I'd also love to see Jamie come back.
Oh, yeah, that's a good shout.
I think he would be awesome, especially now we've got a female Doctor. Might be cool to have a male companion.
Yeah, Jamie would be a good shout. I'd love to see Ace. I agree with you there as a classic companion. Not Tegan, then. I want to get back in the TARDIS.
No, not Tegan.
Okay.
Someone said Adric as well, but I just sort of laughed and spat my tea out a little bit.
Unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, he's dead.
Well, this is Doctor Who, remember?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, could come back.
Nobody's dead. Not really. Next week it's Classic Who's turn. So what have we got next week?
Next week, we are doing a 5th Doctor story, actually, and it's going to be Warriors of the Deep with Sea Devils, Silurians, and Merkers.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Merker? Always get confused. Melker? No, it's Merker, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So interesting one, this one. It was the story that had 2 weeks of its schedule cut.
Is it?
So, yeah, they had to really, really rush this one out the door.
Oh, yeah.
So it'd be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts on this one. But yeah, it will be good to watch a Davison one. Haven't seen, because we space them out, obviously. We haven't seen Davison for a little while.
No, we haven't, have we? No.
So that'd be good. So we'll be asking for your thoughts on that. But anyway, score reunion. High scores, a 9 from me, 8 from Adam. I think we're going to do there for 172.
Okie dokie.
Thank you so much for sticking with us and listening to 172. Some sad news to kick off, which I hate doing. But a couple of interesting bits of merch. Not sure on that book yet. Would be interesting to hear from anyone that's picked it up, given it a read. But it is for charity, so yes, always good. The score reunion review was, as expected. I knew you and I would score that relatively high.
Yes.
It was from our
commentary.
Yeah, from the commentary. So if you guys want to watch along with us, just hop onto the website or iTunes and do a search for Score Reunion. You might find this one, but you'll find the commentary that we did. If you want to hear our reactions as we go through the story. That's cool. And we're hoping to do some more commentaries this year. So, but we're not sure yet on what to do. So we'll keep you updated on as and when that happens. But in the meantime, head over to the website www.bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. You can listen to all of our previous episodes on there, and you can link off to all of the social media stuff. Just give us a like and a follow. We're always chatting about who throughout the week and stuff, in between shows, about who in general and all that stuff. You can also subscribe to our show on iTunes. Just do a search on there. And if you are an iTunes subscriber, if you could drop a like and a review and a rating, that would be awesome, because that really helps us. Plus, you can search for us on all the other podcast networks. We're on there somewhere. Remember to check out Adam's channel, The Geek's Handbag.
Geek's Handbag, yes.
The latest video will have you in shock at the amount of money that Adam spent on his recent Titan blind box collection. But some of them are pretty cool.
Yeah, they are. It's a good set, this one. I do like it. I like it a lot.
I like it that you were getting worried towards the end that you hadn't got all of them.
I genuinely was. Like, where's Nardal? I thought that, knowing my luck, he'd been missed out the box.
Yeah. So check out Adam's channel. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, the whole shebang.
Instagram. I'm loving Instagram at the minute.
Or Instagram, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, we look forward to the Sea Devils. We look forward to Warriors of the Deep next week.
They are in there.
Until then, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember, Latte.